Hello, today we're going to be discussing bacterial meningitis and the bacteria that causes it. We wanted to open with a case study, and in this case, an 18-year-old male presents in the emergency department with a stiff neck, fever, headache, and nausea that started a few hours prior. He presents with an elevated temperature of 103 degrees Fahrenheit, an elevated heart rate of 120 beats per minute, a lowered blood pressure of 95 over 60, and a respiratory rate of 20 breaths per minute. A petechial rash is present on his trunk. Kernig and Brodzinski signs are positive, which is indicative of meningeal irritation. A lumbar puncture was obtained, and the cerebrospinal fluid reveals numerous neutrophils. After further testing, he is diagnosed with meningitis. The infection by what type of bacteria may cause these signs and symptoms? Meningococcus or Neisseria meningitis. So, meningococcus is a coccus-shaped bacteria that is gram-negative. It's an obligate aerobe, meaning it needs oxygen to survive. It requires a temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius, which is around the human body temperature, which means it's a mesophile, and it metabolizes glucose and lactate for energy. Its method of replication of its circular bacterial DNA genome is binary fission, in which it enters microvascular endothelial cells to do so. So this is why the infection occurs in the brain and the spinal cord, because that is where some of these microvascular endothelial cells are found.
For bacterial meningitis, some common early symptoms include fever, headache, nausea, vomiting, an inability to lower your chin to your chest due to a stiff neck, photophobia, confusion, and in some cases, a rash. In young children and babies, vomiting, a loss of appetite, sleepiness, low energy, irritability, seizures, and bulging fontanelle, a soft spot on the baby's head, are common. As the infection spreads, it can lead to worsening neurological symptoms such as seizures, unconsciousness, and difficulty concentrating. Bacterial meningitis worsens quickly and can lead to a coma or death within hours. This is why it is important to go immediately to the ER, just like our patient did after experiencing such symptoms.
So, how does the disease spread? Meningococcus spreads through respiratory droplets like coughing, sneezing, or sharing drinks. It usually starts in the nasopharynx, and people can carry it without even being sick. Sometimes it moves into the bloodstream and could possibly make its way into the brain and spinal cord, which is when it turns into meningitis. In more serious cases, it spreads throughout the body and causes meningisemia, which is a blood infection. The bacteria does a good job at avoiding the immune system. It uses a capsule that helps it hide from the immune cells. It also makes IgA protease, which is an enzyme that breaks down some of the antibodies in the throat, making it easier for it to survive. It also has pili that helps it stick to the cells in the airway.
Meningococcus spreads through respiratory secretions such as mucus or saliva, which acts as the portal of exit. Humans are the reservoir for the bacteria as it cannot survive in the environment for long. Mucous membranes of the nose and throat are the portal of entry where meningococcus can potentially enter the bloodstream. The mode of transmission includes sneezing or coughing that releases salivary droplets containing the bacteria. It can also transmit through shared food and drinks or any other contaminated items. Susceptible hosts include anyone who remains in close contact or shares items with those who are infected. However, infants and the elderly are more susceptible to meningococcus due to having weaker immune systems. Cases are also relatively high for adolescents and young adults due to higher rates of intimate contact. Approximately 1,500 to 3,000 Americans are diagnosed each year.
So I'm going to be discussing the treatment, prevention, and control of bacterial meningitis. So for the treatment, the two antibiotics that are most commonly used are ceftriaxone and vancomycin. Both these medications cause cell lysis of the infecting bacterial cell, meaning that they're bactericidal, and they both interfere with peptidoglycan synthesis. They just do it in slightly different ways. So the vancomycin works by binding to the NAM molecules, and this prevents the glycan chain formation. And then the ceftriaxone binds to the peptide bridge to prevent peptide bridge formation. And like I said, they both cause cell lysis. So for the prevention, there is a vaccine for this bacteria. So the meningococcal ACWY, also called the MenACWY vaccine, is the most effective method of control. It is an inactivated virus, so it contains subunits of the bacteria, and these subunits are linked to carrier proteins to allow for antibody production once the vaccine is administered. So the way this works is the inactivated bacterial cell. It has these subunits on the surface, which are removed and attached to the carrier protein. And then this is then injected into the patient, and they begin producing antibodies. Now for the control. So the best way to mitigate the spread is for the at-risk populations to ensure that they're current on their vaccines and have received all the proper subsequent booster shots. So those who are at risk include people who are immunosuppressed or immunocompromised, and then those who are living in close contact with others, such as in dorms. So that's why college students are required to ensure that they are up to date on all their vaccines and their boosters because it can spread very rapidly in these areas with the close contact.